Press and hold.
Pat Jameson, South Bones Mills. Want to talk about blue zones again. I want to ask you to deactivate the blue zones again. I also have another problem with the FOIA fees. For 4 hours of FOIA for blue zones, cost me $215. That's $54 an hour. That's a little outrageous. There's got to be a better way or something for people who don't make a lot of money to be able to afford FOIAs. That's outrageous. I'm going to need some help after this meeting to file a waiver to waive the fee. So I'll be waiting, but yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. $215 for 4 hours of work for a FOIA. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment? Hearing none, we will move ahead with our agenda. First up, interviews for the Tax Allocation Board. Vivian Connor, a familiar face. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Before we go into commissioner questions, if you would tell us a little bit about yourself for some of the commissioners who do not know you. I think most of them probably do, and why you want to apply for this board.
So, let's see, we could, I don't know, to start at the beginning or to go the other way, but, so I've been a resident of Berry County for over 45 years. I worked for the state of, I worked for Hastings Mutual for a year when I got out of high school. Then I worked for the state of Michigan for over 36 years. Ran for office, and was a county commissioner for 8 years. So my term ended last December. So, but when I retired, I knew I was going to have to give back to my community. I commuted to Lansing for a long time, so it's just difficult when you're raising a family, but part of life is giving back to your community. So I became a commissioner because I felt like that would be a good place for me to serve. And so now I'm applying for this board because I've got a couple of temporary projects that I've been working on, and after they go away, I'll probably be a little crazy with nothing to do. So I was applying for this position. I want to still be involved and give back to my community.
Awesome, thank you. Questions for Vivian? Commissioner Tunison?
Well, thanks for your service, for everything you've given back to the community, for one thing.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And I know you'd be very dedicated to it, so I appreciate you applying
you.
for it.
Commissioner Campbell?
I have no specific questions other than welcome back.
Thanks.
It's nice to see you today.
Good to be
And I'm sure you've had many experiences with tax allocations here and everything as a commissioner, so.
I've never been on that board, but it just flows with what we did here.
Right.
So-
Been involved with somewhat, so, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Hatfield?
Also, thank you for your service. I have no questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smelker?
I feel the same. Thank you for coming back. Vivian and I work together on a lot of committees, so no questions.
Thank you.
Commissioner Getty?
Good to see you. Thanks. Good to be back.
Commissioner Colton?
I know Vivian's a hard worker and passionate about what she does. I think she'd do a great job.
Thank you, Mike.
And Commissioner Doster?
I have nothing further.
Yeah, and I think Vivian knows Tax Allocation Board is starting in April, if I'm right, and that is 3 meetings or 4 meetings, Pam?
3.
3 meetings, so it is not an extremely detailed board, so I think you're well qualified, understanding the workings of the county for that position as well. So I don't have any questions for you as well. We know your qualifications, working with you for 8 years. We appreciate your service and your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will make our decision at the end of the meeting and let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Our other interviewee, Andy Cove, was not able to attend. His resume was in your packet to go through. I've known Andy for a while, and he's also been one of the founders or gentlemen that put together Guys That Give, which is an organization similar to the Women's Giving Circle, basically raising money and funds for, charitable organizations, schools, things in the area like that as well. We'll see how things go with the vote at the end of the meeting, and if we need to interview Andy, we will. As I mentioned, this is a pretty specific committee in the fact that it's only 3 meetings, so. Any further questions from commissioners?
Did you say that his resume was in the packet, but is
Yeah.
no longer, or it
No.
still is?
It's in the packet.
Oh. Is it out of order or something?
No, it's it's on the back side starts on the back side of Vivian's.
Oh, okay, thanks.
So yes. So if there are no questions on Andy, we will move ahead to interviews for the Planning Commission. We have 2 openings and 2 candidates. Only one of those candidates was able to be with us. Joseph Kemerzind was not available for today. So Ben Geiger. Welcome, Ben.
Welcome. It's good to be here amongst Berry County Commissioners. It's good to see everybody. I hope our new commissioners are enjoying their time.
I think you've had a chance to meet most of the new commissioners at
I
some
have.
point or other. And tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know you and your service to your community and why you'd like to be on the Planning Commission.
Ben Geiger, lifelong resident of Berry County. For 12 years, I had the privilege of serving as Berry County Commissioner, and for 4 years as Chair of this board. As our county commissioners know, you serve on a lot of different boards and commissions in this role. And one role that I specifically enjoyed and found challenging but rewarding was the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is a very important board that not only ensures that our structures are safe across Berry County, but protects our quality of life here, the rural landscape of the area. So I find it an extremely valuable board, and I think I told a few of you before I left office that it would be one board that I would happily serve on again.
Absolutely. Questions from commissioners? Commissioner Tunison?
Oh, you've been on that board.
I have.
For how long, Ben?
I believe I sat on that for 2 or 3 years.
So you're very familiar with it.
Since I've left office, it's been hazy, you know.
Yeah.
Now, I did serve on it, and I believe we changed commissioner assignments in the middle of the term, so at least 2 years. I'm going to say
What are
2
some of the big things that you guys work on in that commission?
Gravel pits, a lot of issues around Gun Lake, specifically with expansion of existing commercial development. Some small business establishments. Just a lot of various things, mostly on the west side of the county.
Okay.
But a lot of people were very passionate about it, but the job of a planning commissioner is to look at what the law says and make a determination on what you think meets the spirit of the law.
Appreciate it.
Commissioner Campbell?
Well,
I think your mic is on.
it feels a little bit like a player talking to his coach.
Yeah.
So, your knowledge is more vast.
I mean, you still have
than I
better hair than me.
ever have. Well, that tells that you've been in it longer. But
Is it growing back?
I'm sure you do a great job at it, Ben.
Thank you,
Thank you
Bruce.
for all the help in the
I
past.
appreciate your kind words.
Commissioner Hatfield?
As a member of the Planning Commission at this point and a longtime member of the city's Planning Commission, I can certainly attest to the complexity of balancing citizen concerns with the state laws, and I appreciate your response to Commissioner Tunison, and yeah, certainly consider you a well-qualified applicant, so thank you for applying.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Commissioner Doster?
Nothing further.
Commissioner Colton?
Well, I was on the planning board for 6 years, and you were there for several years. So you see, a lot of the problems, I mean, if people just had some sense or respect for their neighbors, a lot of these problems wouldn't be there. But you got to make those decisions, and like you said, I like what you said about you got to look at the law and where does the law fit in. I know you'll do a great job, so I know you got my vote.
Thank you.
Commissioner Getty?
Thanks for being willing to come back. I've known you to be thorough and like you've said, looking at the facts and the law, and that really is what Planning Commission comes down to. So thanks for being willing to come back and sit in the fire.
Not a problem.
Commissioner Smelker?
Known Ben for the 10 years I've been on here.
Now's your chance. I'm in the hot seat, John. Let her
We
rip.
always agree, don't we, Ben?
Yeah, we always agree.
But I do think you would be just fine on planning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ben, for coming back and for your application. Gravel pits are certainly one of the things that have been on the radar, especially in the southern part of the county again. And the county master plan, planning and zoning master plan is before us again, that Mr. McManus will be presenting on a little later on this morning. So it's quite a task you have ahead of you. There's a lot to get accomplished here, and I agree that following the law and protections are important, and you know, combining that with citizen input is also important. So we appreciate your application and your thoroughness on this. I know you did a great job on the board before, and it'll be good to have a good mind on that board also. So,
Well,
thank you.
Appreciate
Further
it.
questions? Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Commissioner.
you, Ben. We'll make a decision later in the meeting and let you know. Jeff Kemenzind was not available. I've asked Michael since they're, Joseph Kamerzind was not available for today. Because there are 2 seats open for the Planning Commission, I've asked Michael to see when we can reschedule him to come in for an interview. So with that, if there are no further questions, we will move on to our interviews for Zoning Board of Appeals. We have 2 positions. We have 3 candidates to interview this morning. First up, Shirley Barnum. We'll have to ask.
Good morning.
Good morning, Shirley. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you're an incumbent on this board, maybe your experience on the board, and why you continue to apply to serve.
Well, I've been on the board probably 13 or 14 years. I've served as the secretary, the vice chair, and now I'm chairing the board. We've had a lot of upheaval in our board. We had 2 or 3 members of our board die not long ago. So now we're trying to.
Is anybody looking at you for those?
I said, you know, if we have one more member on this board that passes away while I'm here, I'm resigning. I don't want to be the last one to go. But anyway, it's an interesting board, and I've enjoyed being on it. And I just hope that we can get some new people in there now that are willing to do the hard work. People don't realize what a zoning board of appeals is about. This is a person who wants to do something, and they can't get a permit, so they have an appeal avenue, and this is their last resort. We are the last resort as far as people getting, you know, permits to add to their house or put in a fence or things like that. So the board is very important to people, especially citizens that want to have an avenue of giving somebody else a chance to look at their appeal.
Awesome. Awesome. Questions, Commissioner Tunison?
Well, obviously, with your experience and everything, I really appreciate you reapplying, so I want to thank you for all the service that you've done. That's a lot of years.
Well, I felt like I should apply because we've got so many new members, and somebody has to be there to kind of
Guide them?
guide them along on their way, and I hope I can do that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Campbell?
Good morning, Shirley,
Good morning, Bruce.
again.
Again.
It's just a no-brainer. You've got all the experience. You don't get rid of your captain when you're going to war, so I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hatfield?
Thank you very much for your service. I have no questions.
Commissioner Smelker?
I believe Bruce put it the best, whether it was a military term, so I agree.
Commissioner Getty?
Thank you for all the years you put in. I know the ZBA is not an easy
It's not an easy board to
position.
be on because you're going to make somebody unhappy.
Right. With so many new faces, has the ZBA taken advantage of the trainings that are available for for ZBA members. There's lots available through the state.
Well, and that, you know, the members can talk to Jim McManus. He has all that information, anybody that wants to do that, but I don't believe we're required to do anything.
When I was at the township, I just know that there were great resources available to those new members so that.
And I've availed myself of some
Great.
of those resources over the years, too.
Great, thank you for everything.
Commissioner Colton.
I've known Shirley for years, and she's one of the highest quality people I know. And I remember when I was on zoning, you know, sometimes we'd have some tough meetings that pretty gut-wrenching, but I'd always think, thank God I'm not on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Because I heard that was tougher, so, you know, we'll keep you there. Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doster.
Do you meet on an as-needed basis then?
Do we what?
Meet on an as-needed basis, or do you have a regular meeting every month?
We do not have a regular meeting. It is as needed.
Yeah. How many times do you think you've had a meeting then this last month, or last year, I mean?
I would say probably about 5.
And-
Because I think Jim, you know, bundles things.
Yeah.
So that we don't have to meet just for one appeal.
And how many townships do you think are under county authorization for zoning now, do you think?
I'm not sure. I know that quite a few of the townships have their own zoning, but Berry County is basically the one that kind of leads the way.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Berry County zoning.
Okay, thank you. Shirley, I appreciate your application, and I appreciate your experience and your willingness to continue to serve on this board. As you heard, this is oftentimes the last resort, so some of these meetings aren't often pleasant when they don't get the right answer, or the answer they'd like. It probably is the right answer whether they like it or not, but
That's it.
I appreciate your continued service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Philip Joseph. Good morning, Philip. How are you?
Good.
If you would tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and why you want to continue to be on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Sure. So I live in Orangeville in Berry County now for 5 years. Got on the board last time when someone passed away, unfortunately. So you guys appointed me the last one for those who were here. I'm in the building industry currently. I'm very invested in this community. I love Berry County. I love everything about it, and I'm here to serve and just be a part of the community.
Awesome, awesome. Questions for Mr. Joseph? Commissioner Doster.
How many townships do you think are under county
You know,
administration?
I don't know that answer.
Oh.
When you asked that, I was thinking, I don't know.
How about Orangeville?
It is,
It is?
yeah.
Okay.
In fact, that's kind of what got me started in the first place. They put a gravel pit right behind my house.
Oh.
And I went to the Zoning Board of Appeals and found a lot out.
See, that's why always in the past, I've kind of leaned toward townships serving in those positions that didn't serve, because that way, you know, you don't have something right in your backyard that you're dealing with. How do you deal with that if you feel like you have a conflict?
Gravel pits have their own little special place. They've been pushed to the state a little bit, so there's really not much to be done, from my understanding, which is pretty frustrating, that the people in the community don't really have a voice when it comes to gravel pits. So that's something that really needs to be looked at, in my opinion, on the state level, because I think they're moving. I don't know the semantics of it, but I think that's a big deal, and I think it's an issue when the people don't have a choice of what goes in their backyard.
Do you think that the state has preempted the township's zoning in that manner?
I would say so. I mean, if I live there, you know, people, this is their homes that they've bought and invested into, they're raising their kids, and if they don't have a say when there's rezoning, for example, because that's what has to happen a lot of the times, I would say that's inappropriate for the state to do that. So yeah, I would say so. I'm not anti-gravel pit, of course, for the people to have a voice. That's my only stand on that.
What's your view of having training for new and old members of that
I
board?
think that's, I mean, there are options to Catherine's point. They do, now for the zoning board of appeals, they're more limited than the actual planning. From what I saw, and we get them every month, or they send it out, it's about once a year for planning, zoning board of appeals. But yeah, I'm always encouraging that. I mean, that would never be a bad thing. So absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Colton?
I think 11 of the 16 townships are under county zoning. The village of Nashville is having discussions right now over whether to give up their own zoning, planning and such, and go to the county, and I support that idea. Now, how long have you been on the board now?
I want to say it's about a year and a half. I kind of came in partially through. It's hard to keep track. There's been so much that's happened. A year and a half, 2 at most.
You like it?
I do.
Okay,
I like
well,
serving. It's not like I
okay.
look forward to, but I like
Well,
serving.
I always think of zoning board of appeals like I think of ambulance drivers and such that, oh my God, I couldn't do that, but thank God someone wants to
Yeah.
do it. So, thank you.
Commissioner Getty?
Thanks for being willing to continue to serve. You kind of answered my question in advance, but I hope that all our planning commission and zoning board of appeals members take advantage of training when it's available. It's good team building if you go to an in-person, and there's also a lot available online.
Yeah.
Commissioner Smelker?
My questions have been answered also. Thank you for applying, Joseph. Reapplying, I should say.
Commissioner Hatfield?
Good morning. Appreciate your past service on that board, and certainly I think well qualified. So thank you for your interest in continuing.
Thank you.
Commissioner Campbell?
Morning, Joseph. Welcome back. I can see we made a good choice first time around. Shirley will be happy. You look very healthy and able to continue work. So hope to get you aboard. Thank you.
Commissioner Tunison?
Appreciate you applying again, Philip. Obviously, with your construction background, it makes good sense that when you're on this anyway, when you're dealing with some of these situations where people want to build too close to property line or whatever, so you got a good common sense to you, so I know you'd make a good choice to re-sign up again, so.
Nope. Thank you for your application. We appreciate you coming back and be willing to, like I said, it's not an easy position to be in because you're the last line as far as hearing both sides of it, as far as what the law says and what they want to do. And I empathize with the gravel pits. There has been legislation at the state for several years where the lobbyists for the gravel pits want to take it out of all local control and make it an Eagle proposition versus having any local control. So I support that as well. But thank you for your application. We'll make a decision at the end of the meeting and let you know.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Philip. Our final interview is Daniel Willett. Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning.
If you would tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. I'm a new transplant to Michigan. I moved out here 2 years ago from Maryland. Obviously, I moved out here for a good reason because Maryland and Michigan have a little bit different weather conditions. But I moved out here to be closer to my family and my new grandchildren. And I've worked in the construction industry for many years. And I was in the custom home building business. And I have quite a bit of experience through that. And I'm looking forward to branching out a little bit here in Michigan and getting to know different areas of the government. And I thought this appeals thing would be a good start for me to branch out. And that's why I'm here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Questions from commissioners. Commissioner Tunison?
Obviously, with your building background, you make a good candidate. So you've dealt with a lot of people who have to get variances and everything else over the years, so. And So you've probably seen the referee situation where you have to look at both sides and try to make a good determination.
Most of the time I
so.
was looking for my side. to
Yeah,
get a variance passed.
exactly.
But you're right, yeah, dealing with the government and the offices that deal with permits and licensing is a pretty good thing to know.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you applying.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Nice
Good to be here.
Nice to have you. Certainly look like you got some good qualifications. I too was in the building profession for a while, and you get very familiar with those codes very quickly.
Sure do.
They cost you money if you do it wrong, so appreciate having you here.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hatfield.
Thank you. I have no additional questions.
Commissioner Doster.
You're also from Orangeville Township, is that correct?
Yes, I live in Delton.
But in Orangeville Township?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever served on a governmental board before?
No, I haven't. Something I'm looking forward to doing, and I think it'd be a good way to serve the community.
Well, it's a challenging, I'm on the Prairieville Township's zoning board, and it's a challenging position, I'll tell you. But it does help if I think if you've lived in an area a while, in order to know where all the roads are and where you see things that can cause you problems. I mean, you feel like you're quite familiar with all of Berry County?
Oh, no, I'm very familiar with right around where I live.
Okay.
But I'm eager to learn.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Getty.
Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Oh,
Well, thank you for applying. I know it's a tough job, so I appreciate you applying.
thank you. Sorry about that, Commissioner Getty.
It's all right. I'm going to make sure everyone gets a chance. I see that you live on the same street with Patrick, or you, so one of the objectives sometimes that helps is that we pick people that represent different areas around the county geographically. And you being new, that could be challenging, but not something that, you couldn't become more familiar with.
And I'm familiar with the process. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of generic, really, but looking at evidence and conditions applied to whatever the issue is, you can look at it on paper and pretty much figure it out.
Well, I appreciate you being new and being willing to jump right in to serve the community.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smelker.
With your business, have you had an opportunity to deal with permits and stuff in Berry County?
Yes. I applied for quite a few permits. I built my house about a year ago, and I got all the permits for it. And so I've dealt with it on a ground level circumstance, but yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Thank you for applying.
Thanks.
Commissioner Hatfield.
I already.
Oh, okay.
Second chance.
You had your turn, okay. Awesome.
I guess I will ask one question. You're more than a neighbor. Is your daughter gonna make it difficult for you to do anything other than the two of you concur?
My daughter?
Aren't you Philip's father-in-law?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never had a problem with my daughter, so.
Oh, I didn't mean you were gonna have a problem with your daughter. It was more a question of your daughter. No, excuse me, that was a bad attempt at a little humor, but yeah, it's an interesting situation to have relatives both serving on a very small board. So I assume the two of you have come to an understanding of independence.
I've always been independent, and Phil, I'm sure, has been the same, so.
There won't be any problems.
Okay. I have no further questions. I appreciate your application and welcome to the neighborhood. Welcome to Delton and Berry County, so.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll make
Thank
a
you all for
decision
your
and
time.
let you know at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving in with our agenda, I see Mr. McManus has arrived. We're a little ahead of schedule, so he must have been paying attention to us this morning, so. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. Yeah, we do have it on downstairs, so fortunately I was aware that you are going a little faster than we anticipated. So what I have today is a couple of things. First of all, we would like to just go over a kind of a summary for the new commissioners of what the planning department functions and roles are for the county. Included with that, we sent you a copy of the 2022 year-end report, which is a requirement that we do as part of the planning process. And then finally, we sent you a copy of the draft master plan. We do need you to make a motion today to authorize the planning commission to distribute that to all the neighboring jurisdictions so that we can begin the public process. We were planning on scheduling the public hearing for the master plan for the June planning commission meeting. And there's a 63-day window in there that neighboring jurisdictions have an opportunity to review the document and can make any comments. So that will be the public process. And we'll get to that at the end here.
You said motion to approve distribution to the local units of government?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'll be referencing the year-end report as well as the summary document that we put in the agenda packet for you, so we're kind of following along. First of all, for those the commissioners that are new or just as a review for all of you that have been on for a while, the planning department for the county does serve a variety of roles for you. First of all, we are the primary enforcing agent for the ordinances that are within the county. For zoning, we administer the planning and zoning for 11 of the 16 townships and the village of Woodland currently. With that is the issuance of permits, the review of all the submittals, as well as actual enforcement. If you go to the year-end report, we did include a summary of the enforcement procedures toward the back, page 8. So that'll give you an identification of the new complaints that we get on a yearly basis, the closed complaints that our enforcement officer, Jack Ward, works through, and on those occasions when voluntary enforcement is not coming as expeditiously as we need, and we have to go to the civil infraction process, you can see that we do issue tickets on occasion to help get that enforcement completed. So we did include 6 years of a summary of the enforcement process, and it is also in there by township. So typically we will close out around 200 complaints in a year, a little bit more. We're opening another 200 so it's kind of an endless cycle of enforcement that happens. And usually we get voluntary compliance, but anywhere between 30 and 50 civil infraction violations are issued throughout the year. On top of that, within the fee schedule, there is an opportunity to in-house a fee for those that begin projects in advance of getting the appropriate permits. We call that an investigation fee, and last year we had about 8 of those on top of what you see there in the document. So that's the zoning side. For soil erosion, we do the entire county as far as issuing the permits. As part of the enforcement process, we go out generally on a monthly basis to all of the different townships to verify that the techniques that are being used are in compliance with the state best management practices. We send out a report every time we go to those to either the builder or the homeowners. Those also get recorded with our office, and then the state can come in and check those as they need to on a regular basis. As part of the process for soil erosion, we do get audited by the state every 5 years. Last year we were audited and we did pass, which is important for you, so that we are able to continue as a department managing the soil erosion and sedimentation program. If for some reason in the future that there were to be a non-passing grade on an audit, then the state can come in and take over the soil erosion process and actually bill you to do the work. So we want to make sure we meet all those conditions, and when we passed, fine. Everybody in our department is certified now to administer the soil erosion program, and we hope to have Julie upgraded to get to the advanced level of management here this spring or summer. Land divisions is the final area where we do reviews and issue permits. We do the land division permits for 13 of the 16 townships. Yankee Springs, Thornapple, and Rutland are on their own. We also do the village of Freeport, the village of Nashville, and the village of Woodland. As of 1997, every time you want to divide a piece of property or you are required to get a land division permit, we check all the state requirements to make sure that every application meets those. And then for the larger townships, we have the township do a review, and then eventually they sign it through their assessor. For Hope and Prairieville, we send that to the zoning administrator as well, and they verify that the zoning is met for any proposed land division that comes in. So we cover the county in a lot of different areas to make sure that everything is done. Land divisions, all those are also included in our GIS profile so that you can check the history of land divisions, and it's very simple for us to kind of go through and look at the deeds and make sure that everything is legal and that the applications can be approved. This is a tremendous benefit for the townships in that generally they don't have full-time staff. They certainly don't have the GIS technology that we have. So we can process the applications much more efficiently and at a cheaper cost than a lot of other jurisdictions around West Michigan. Our base fee for land divisions is $75. If you get to some of the townships that are outside of Berry County, it gets into the hundreds of dollars very quickly for those kinds of costs. Okay. As far as other administrative functions, floodplain reviews, we just verify that if you're in the floodplain that you go through the proper process with the state of Michigan to get the appropriate permits before we'll do any zoning or building permits. I am the administrator of the address ordinance, so any new addresses or address changes that occur, they come through our office, and we also approve any new road names for subdivisions or private roads that are coming forward. We are the liaisons to professional code inspections. PCI is your building officials, and they do all the permits for building projects, so that includes mechanical, plumbing, electrical, and building permits. Within the 2022 year-end report, pages 3 through 7, is a summary of PCI's work so that we keep a running tab of all the building projects. So for last year, for example, PCI issued 893 building permits worth $95 million of project. So that is, eventually going to work your way into the assessment rolls and the taxable projects. They also included lists for all the other permits that are issued, broke it down by the different kinds of projects that are issued. And between 2021, which is the largest year that PCI had, and this year they had a slight decline, but it's been a very active 3 or 4 years for PCI and the county as a whole. We are building quite a bit. We also respond to a lot of FOIA requests. We are required to maintain the records for any project for the life of the project. So we have records that go back to the 1970s and often have to go down and find original permits or the plans for projects as folks want to take a look or maybe do additions. So we spend a lot of time searching our old records, and thank you for giving us extra storage space because we've needed it over the years. I also serve on the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, the Economic Development Alliance, the Joint Planning Alliance, and the M37 Corridor Committee. All of these are specialized committees that look at specific projects that fall under different jurisdictions. So we work with MDOT very closely for the M37 Corridor Committee, and that kind of relationship doesn't happen in every county, so we're pleased to have that available. You are interviewing today for the Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals, and hopefully make some appointments as we have some vacancies that need to be filled. Just in summary, just so you know, the Planning Commission's roles are to look at special use permits, rezoning requests, and zoning ordinance adoptions. They look at site plan reviews. We review master plans from other communities, which is why we have to send our notice out that we talked about for the 63-day review. Farmland agreements that occur within the county's zoning jurisdiction have to go through the Planning Commission before they come to you as the Board of Commissioners. And then if there's a capital project, like a Thornapple Manor, that's coming through, that has to go before the Planning Commission to be reviewed as well. So when these folks make applications to serve on these committees, there's a tremendous amount of responsibility since we're driving around and looking at projects in all 11 of the townships. There's a lot of times mileage built up, and you asked the one applicant there just a second ago if they're familiar. They become very familiar with the county in short order. So you may drive the whole county for one meeting just to get to the different sites to look at different applications. Generally, the Planning Commission hears between 10 and 15 special use permits in a year, 2 to 4 rezoning requests, 10 to 15 site plan reviews. So all those have to be noticed. They have to be published. We do send notices to the neighbors when appropriate. So there's a lot to it that in office that we need to get correct as well. The Zoning Board of Appeals has really 3 different functions. Primarily, they review variances, which are deviations from the requirements of the ordinance because folks cannot, in their estimation, meet the requirements of the ordinance. So if there's a hardship on the property and we have a 20-foot side yard setback and the applicant cannot meet that 20-foot requirement because maybe there's a septic system, maybe there's a pond, then they would ask for a variance to maybe go to a 10-foot setback. It's up to the Zoning Board of Appeals to grant that if appropriate, at least to have the public hearing. They also can appeal, folks can appeal administrative decisions. So in our office, we make a decision and somebody disagrees with it, the proper route is to go to the ZBA for an appeal to that. We've had maybe 3 or 4 of those over the years, and generally the interpretations have all fallen under the county after you give a good explanation of why you approved it. But there's an opportunity there, and if the ZBA deems that the decision was incorrect, then we would have to revoke those permits. Lastly, they would do any interpretation of the zoning ordinance, specifically if there was a map question for a piece of property of which zoning class the property fell in, or if there were duplicate zoning classifications for a property, the ZBA would determine which one that would fall into it. So you could have one where there's maybe a rural residential and a mixed use. The property is split, which one is appropriate? People can ask for that interpretation if they're looking to do a project. So again, your ZBA challenging board oftentimes gets heated, so we thank those who are applying, and we do need those all. Just a reminder, we need all 3 openings. There's 2 incumbents, and we lost 1 member. She moved. So if you have 3 candidates, if they're all appropriate, we'll take all 3. There is a construction board of appeals that the county has that currently is not active. We have only had 2 requests in the last 30 years for the construction board of appeals, one of which was the 911 original building. In the event that there is a building variance that needs to be requested, we would need to appoint a construction board of appeals, and that needs to be somebody who is associated with the building trade, the electrical trade, and the mechanical trade. We don't have enough cases to keep that active, but if we do need that in the future, that may be something I would come back for. And finally, your role in part of the planning process is to approve all zoning regulations. So every time there is a rezoning request, either a map change or a text change, that has to come before you to be approved finally. You must approve or can approve all farmland agreements, and they start at the Planning Commission level, but they come to you for final approval. The master plan processes we're going to go through here in just a second. You have a tremendous say in that as far as the distribution and then ultimately the final acceptance of the master plan. The master plan is the guiding document for all future regulations of the county, so it's a vital part of it. You approve the fee schedule, so if you feel that there's any fees that are inappropriate, you have every right to adjust those. We try to keep our county as reasonable as possible because we have the bulk way of administering the permits. Since we're handling so many townships, we don't have to charge as much for each individual permit. If you were trying to maintain a planning department at every township and you're only getting 10 to 15 requests a year, then those fees are going to have to go up to cover that. Our fee at $50, again, I think is the least expensive zoning permit fee in all of West Michigan. And then lastly, as you're going to be doing later, you appoint the Planning Commission and ZBA. So thank you for that effort, and we look forward to all the new members that are coming on board. Finally, I'll just take a look here at the 2022 year-end report from the zoning and planning department side of things. And page 2 is the table that we typically produce for that. It shows the number of zoning permits, soil erosion, and land division permits issued by township during the course of the year. The land division permits is the number of permits, and then the second number in there is the number of new parcels that are created. With the lack of subdivisions in the county currently, those are really your new home building sites that are being generated. We're not getting subdivisions in our part of Berry County. There are some in Middleville. There's one going in Rutland Township. But in the outer part of the county, it's really all being done by land divisions. So it's a fairly quick process to get through it, as long as you meet all the requirements. So we did see a pretty large increase in that. The new addresses, the majority of those are residential, but we do include commercial in that number. I do not include pole constructions or accessory buildings that need numbers, and the numbers do not include or reflect the city of Hastings new houses, which they do their own addressing and maintain their own records for that. And then, of course, the closeouts. Below that is the summary of the Planning Commission and ZBA activity for the year in 2022. Of course, the majority of the year we were working on the master plan, so we did have a lot of planning activity. Do you have any questions about any of the summaries or the roles of the Planning Commission before we get to the master plan?
Jim, do you guys do addresses for the entire county or just for the 11 townships you represent?
We do addresses for all jurisdictions except the city of Hastings and Woodland Township.
Okay. Looks like the growth is Irving Township, Yankee Springs, northern part of the county.
Northwestern part of Berry County has been the most active growth area for really the last 2 decades. It's that Grand Rapids influence, and when M6 went in, that travel time to get from Northwest Berry County to really anywhere in Grand Rapids shrank tremendously, so it opened up a lot of opportunities for folks to move to our area.
Okay. Questions for Jim?
I have a few questions on the master plan.
He's going to
We're gonna
dive
do
into
that
that
next.
next.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, if there are no questions, we'll continue on. Are you okay? Do we need to take a break now before we go into it? Okay. We're going to take a
Sure.
5 to 7 minute recess, and then we'll go back and dive in.
Yeah, well, I need to talk to a discharge person. Like, can I talk to her? All right, well, I gotta go back in my
The board will come back in session.
Mark, was this your?
Yes, thank you.
Into the Berry County master plan, the 2040 master plan. So this is for sometime in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, we're to the point now with the master planning process that the draft plan has been completed or nearing completion. So, but keep in mind, this is still just a draft. So there still could be some adjustments that need to be made. We do know there's a couple of pages in there that we haven't got the pictures for yet. Those will all be, before the final product comes out, will all be updated and included. But for the most part, it's ready to go. Really the meat, the substance of the document is set, and we want to get that out to the jurisdictions. But if I'll just kind of refer you to the back pages to the maps. One of the things that McKenna did for us is they took the entire county and they broke it down into really just 3 different planning areas. One is called preserve, one is called enhance, and one is called grow. So for the average citizen, for a person just coming to the county, for a developer, it's very simple just to look at this map and say, yes, that's an area that we want to see grow and we want development to happen, or this is going to be an area that is primarily identified for preservation and development is going to be limited. Your preservation areas are going to be your prime farmland areas, your sensitive environmental areas, obviously everything surrounding the state game areas and so forth. Where you don't want to necessarily have development. The grow areas are going to be around existing communities, whether those be the formal communities, villages and cities, or the unincorporated hamlets like a Hickory Corners or an Orangeville, places like that. The framework even applies to those jurisdictions within the county that are on their own. So We took their plans to the best of our ability and used our categorizations to put their planning emphasis into our document. So as a commissioner in the future, if a grant is being submitted or there's an opportunity for funding for an infrastructure project, you can tell right away whether it meets the criteria of whether that should be approved or not based on the simplistic classification system that we used. I can tell you that McKenna is excited about doing this, and they intend, once we're finished, to take this plan and maybe make a presentation at the state conference, take it on the road, and use it as a model for other rural communities around the state. And that's not surprising. Berry County has often been the model for other rural counties around the state for planning, for GIS. We're usually ahead of the curve. You know, we've made ordinances, like open space ordinances, in advance of any state legislation. So we try to stay and try to do things proactively as much as possible.
Question for you, when looking at your county framework, if I can interrupt you for a second.
Sure, go, yeah.
Just because it was something that came before the board last year, which was the Bay Point development and the expansion in that area, as I'm looking at the map, and I love how it's set up, by the way, the preserve, enhance, and grow.
Sure.
I see, using Gun Lake as our focal point, there's very little yellow on the very top northeastern side. Now, I don't know if Allegan County has more of that in there. Is there not more urban area or more urban growth area around Gun Lake that's anticipated?
So for a lot of the lake areas, we use the enhance classification system for that, which means you take what is there for the most part and enhance it, but it essentially stays the same. So if it's residential, it's going to try to retain residential. If it's commercial, it's going to try to retain commercial. But we don't necessarily want to have industrial projects going around the outside of a lake area. Whereas in the grow areas, that would allow for the greatest flexibility. So you could have all your categories of future land use. And also surrounding Gun Lake, you know, as soon as you get outside those housing areas, you are actually in state land almost immediately. So there's no opportunity to go really beyond those borders. So we tried to keep it as concise as we could with that mapping area. That said, there may be some small tweaks to the map that need to be done to cover some of these areas that have happened more recently. And some of those have been brought up by the Planning Commission, but we want to do that all in one shot instead of piecemealing it, so that becomes part of the public review.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The other primary parts of the plan, toward the rear is the action plan and the goals, and it gives you timetables and objectives that we hope to achieve over the next few years. One of those will be very likely a review and potential new zoning ordinance. We're going to have to make a number of changes to the zoning ordinance simply because it's been a while. I mean, the last master plan that we did was in 2005. The zoning ordinance that we created after that was in 2008, was adopted, so it's been 15 years. The types of land uses that are now becoming prominent weren't even considered when that ordinance was adopted. There was no thought to the marijuana industry in our current zoning ordinance, and wouldn't have been. The solar projects that are being promoted across the state wasn't considered in 2008 at that level. We do have some alternative energy, but it isn't to the level we need. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about gravel pits. We want to enhance whatever ordinances we need to do based on the plan, and there's a whole section in here on gravel pits. There's a whole section on alternative energy that we can use to try to craft ordinances. So you have to be able to put it in the plan before you can make ordinances. McKenna, in their framework, was intentional in that they based the decisions for their classifications on our existing zoning ordinance, so the zoning plan. We won't have to reclassify everything in a new zoning ordinance. We can just transfer it in and update what needs to be updated. So that should help expedite that process and save a few dollars in terms of cost. So what we intend to do is we intend to take the same document that you received and send it to all those jurisdictions that need to be. So it's everybody within the county and all the jurisdictions that surround Berry County. So counties, townships, the Indian tribes, plus all utility companies. And then they'll have their 63-day review. We'll have our formal public hearing in June. We'll go over that. Planning Commission may need to have another hearing after that to make any other adjustments that need to be done. And then it gets brought back to you July or August for final approval. So we would hope that as you're, over the next couple of months, you have an opportunity to review it. If you have any comments or questions, you can just bring it down to our office and we'll forward them on to our consultant in the Planning Commission. And those things that need to be, changed will be done. For the motion, which we did on the cow, it's, you do need to authorize that the Planning Commission can send those notices to the neighboring jurisdictions, and then we can start that review process for the public hearing.
Awesome. Questions from Mr. McManus? Commissioner Tunison?
Jim, I got a question about, okay, so have you addressed about this solar farm thing? All of a sudden, like down there at Halbert's farm?
Sure.
Okay, where consumers buys up, whatever, 2,000 acres or whatever, and they're gonna put a huge, taking up all that farmland for solar farms. I mean,
So what was,
yeah, can you address that a little bit?
Sure. So what this will do is the plan creates the basis, if you will, for creating an ordinance that would deal with commercial solar level farms. We believe, and we went over it the other night with the Planning Commission, that we do need to include that language in the plan so we can at least bring it up in an ordinance. We have no standards.
Right.
And we need to create standards for these kinds of activities. So within the plan, there is a map that illustrates some of the areas where solar activity would likely occur. It doesn't guarantee it. This is a plan is a goal-oriented document. It is a consideration. It is not law. So the zoning ordinance creates the law, but you do have to have it in the plan. So there is a section on solar farms. It sets the basis for the standards so that you can create an ordinance once it's adopted and really go into the legal side of things.
But
And the
we
same
are-
thing with gravel. Same
But
thing
we
with
are
some-
gonna address that, right, as
Yes,
far as?
yes, it's
okay.
in there, and we intend to address it with
Okay.
the ordinance, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Campbell?
Hey, Jim. That too is a big subject too. Obviously, my townships out there are directly involved with that going on out there, so a lot of concern going on out there. I'm sure you've heard about that already.
We have had a few calls, yeah.
Yeah, you have a monster job to do. I've got a little question. I'm not even sure if it's in the parameter of the discussion we're having here today, but I had a couple of constituents, no matter how small the concern seems to me, it's a concern to them. So early on, when this plan was getting going again, they took, I was at the meetings, they come around, somebody from your office come around and addressed the idea of a volunteer to help with the framework. And I had two from the townships that very gently told me that they had went to one meeting and then were never contacted again for any further meetings. So I'm just assuming that was probably a glitch in communications or something, but as constituents, they were a little distraught over it.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the volunteers that did come out, and I know the ones that were there. I did send them through email notices of the most recent meetings that they were invited to, which was the review of the draft plan. So really, the steering committee is kind of, we created them. Their function was initially to kind of give us some guidance as to kind of just set up some of the public reviews and public and interactions, if you will. So we set up a booth at the fair. And I know that at least one of your constituents helped do that and worked with us. So we did that. We also went to Orangeville Days and had one of the representatives from Orangeville kind of assist us. We were in Founders Day in Delton. We went to a Gun Lake meeting. So we went to a few different areas, and that was one of their primary functions. And then when we get to the end of the process, that they come back and they have an opportunity to review the draft plan. So I did send notices to everybody on the steering committee. I can't say whether they all got the notices, but they were the emails that I had.
Okay.
And we did have a few of the steering committee members show up. And then also at this time, now that this is going to go out to the jurisdictions, this is also an opportunity for those constituents to have a chance to review and to give comment and feedback on the planning process.
Good.
So they're not done. They're welcome to still stay participating.
Well, they were more concerned with that, stuff gets lost.
Yeah.
They seem to think that they were not contacted after that first initial. And of course, the question to me was, well, why did they come out and ask us to participate if we're not being told when to participate?
Yeah, well, I think the participation was initially to help with the public interactions, and then at the end to review the plans. And so we did send them everything that we had, but I can't say,
Yeah.
I didn't get anything back, so.
Yeah, well, I know it's a small thing.
But if they have
but-
anything, then definitely have them make sure they get a copy of it and make any comments. And let them
Sure.
stay with it.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Sure.
Commissioner Hatfield.
Thank you. Well, I came in at the end of the Planning Commission at the tail end of this process, so I can take no credit whatsoever for it. I wish I could, because I've worked with the development of a number of master plans over the years, and I think this is one of the best that I have ever had the opportunity to look at. And I really congratulate Jim and the Planning Commission and McKenna for the way they've approached it, and I can understand that they're very proud of it and want to show it off to other possible clients. So I think it just speaks to the quality of the work here. So
Great, thank you.
congratulations.
Commissioner Smelker.
I have no questions. Thank you for what you do, Jim.
Sure.
Commissioner Getty.
It's fantastic what the work you guys did
Great, thank
here. I mean, you took a few trees in the process, but,
Well, I did send it as a
Yeah.
link, so
Yeah.
I tried not to.
and, I don't think it can be overstated, the importance of then implementing it into a zoning ordinance. And there are so many great ways communities have been integrating master plans into very user-friendly ordinances. So that's that definitely is the next challenge.
Sure.
And I'm excited to see the good work you guys will do with that, considering what you've done here.
Great. Thank you.
Commissioner Cullen.
Well, I was around for the last one, and this is even a nicer job than that one. And I know it's just monumental task to put these together, but it directs a lot of direction where our county is going. So thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Doster.
And the engineering firm was McKenna that you used, and that's correct?
It is, yeah, McKenna Associates.
And they also had done the city of Hastings as well? then,
They have,
Prior?
yeah.
And then your consultant is Rebecca Harvey on this?
Correct, yep.
And the city of Hastings uses her as well, correct, or?
She is their planning consultant. She also works for Rutland and the JPA, JPC. So she's familiar with Berry County through a number of involvements that she has.
Yeah, she also is involved with Prairieville
Yes,
and
and
Yankee
Prairieville as
Springs.
well,
So,
and Yankee Springs.
Yeah, so she brought a breadth.
She's got to have a pretty thorough understanding of the county, I would think. Did you have independent counsel look at this at all, or?
we haven't, no.
Okay. I think the plan is excellent. It's very, I don't want to use the word simplistic, readily understandable, maybe. A lot of these plans get so dense, but you don't want to do anything but use them as a paperweight. I'm curious as how many comments we'll get back from after the distribution.
Awesome.
I had sorry. Can I have another question?
Yes.
The townships have a chance to review this over the next 30 days?
It'll be, the notices will go out here probably the first or second week of April, when you make your motion, and then they have until the end of June. So
Okay.
the meeting will be the fourth Monday in June.
And then, is there any outreach to the townships other than just sending the notice? Will anybody be attending?
Generally, no,
Township.
we don't go to specifically to every township, so this is their opportunity to review and to make comments, and then everybody can come to the public hearing and we'll respond to all that.
Sure, and as commissioners, we can share that when we, attend our township meetings, because it is something that sometimes gets overlooked. And there's a lot of really good information in here, so if we're, reaching out to, in our districts, to share it and bring it to the attention of those units.
Yeah, absolutely.
It goes to the utilities as well, correct?
It does.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jim, for townships like Hope, which I live, that doesn't have county zoning, they'll get the same document?
They will. So the county plan covers the entire county, even though the zoning may not be applicable, but there's other actions within a master plan that would, for example, road information. So, how we look at that. Again, there's a whole section on broadband, which obviously is a county-wide issue. Grants, infrastructure grants for utilities will go between different townships. So that's going to be applicable to all jurisdictions. So, yeah, it's going to every jurisdiction. And we tried to take a plan that Hope has and to meld it into ours using our classification, but it's their document within our system.
Awesome. How old was the last plan? When was the last plan done?
2005. was the last time we
2005?
adopted it, yeah.
Okay. So we're basically going to go 17 or more years into the future with this one. What happens in the course of that plan if something pops up like solar farms?
Sure.
Or,
Well, again, so
EVs
that's
are
in there,
popular
but yeah,
now.
so every plan can be amended. So the way the statute works is that the planning commissions are supposed to review or take a look at, what's going on there on a yearly basis. Every 5 years, they're supposed to do a formal review to see if we need to do any significant changes.
Okay.
So if you think back to, we did the 2005 plan, based on that, we received a significant amount of grant dollars for the county, the biggest of which was the sewer project that went up to Middle Lake and Leech Lake and Hastings and Carlton Township. Because that was in a plan, that was deemed to be a shovel-ready project, and so we got the benefit of that. So having active and current plans is tremendous for grant applications and opportunities. But if something comes up, because something could come up, you can amend a plan. You don't have to wait 20 years to redo it if necessary. The greatest story that we know is the city of Kentwood many years ago adopted a plan, and Steve Langworthy at the time was a famous Michigan planner. They adopted it. The next month, Steelcase came in and said, we're buying Section 36, threw the plan out and redid it. So it's because you never know. We don't anticipate that. We're more rural than some of those other areas. But if something comes up that needs to be addressed, then we can go back and take a look at it. And there's the way the law is set up is you actually have to. So we did 05, when 2010 got here, we did a formal review, but that was when the economy was going down. So there wasn't really a requirement to change things. 2015, we did a review, and we were basically at the same place we were in 2005, so we didn't feel we had to do a major update to the plan. By the time we got to 20, things had really changed, and we knew we had to, then COVID hit. So that's why it's being delayed now till now. But
Okay.
so this is a 20-year plan that has to be looked at really every 5 years.
So if things take off in Delton or Nashville or, Maple Valley, somewhere in the district where things are really on the grow, they can be adjusted as needed.
Yeah, and if it's in those areas where we anticipate it, that's the whole basis of the flexibility of the classifications, that grow means grow. And we're building in enough of a buffer that we can absorb that. It's if something were to come to Berry County unexpectedly, that is in an area that we don't identify as growth, that you really have to take a look and see if the plan should adopt that.
Like a $3 billion battery plant going in
Like a $3
Marshall or
billion
something like
battery
that?
plant,
Okay.
or, an airport, or, I mean, it's something you can't even conceptualize right now, but all of a sudden it comes to fruition.
Awesome. Very thorough job. I appreciate your work with the consultant, with McKenna, with your board, putting in a lot of time and effort, extra effort and energy to make this happen. Very thorough. I've just had a chance to peruse it. Obviously, there's a lot of late-night reading in there to
is.
understand all the details, but just on the onset, it's fantastic the way it's readable and usable, so.
Great.
Appreciate the effort in there. Any additional questions? Okay. With that, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the distribution of the Berry County 2040 Master Plan to the local units of government.
So moved, Oster.
Support.
Motion by Doster, support by Getty, to approve the distribution of the Berry County 2040 Master Plan to all the local units of government. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries.
All right, we'll see you later on this summer.
And that is, just for board notice, that's not a final action, so it'll come back to the board for final approval after the public hearing.
That's correct, yeah,
Correct,
you'll see the
okay.
final plan, and then you'll adopt it at that time.
So this is just a motion
This
to
is the
release it?
draft, that's
Okay.
correct, this is just for distribution.
All right, awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Jim.
You're welcome.
Next up, Heather Wing, a regular visitor to the board these days, so.
Good morning.
Morning.
A continuation of what we went over at the last cow.
Yeah,
Good work, fast work.
I have to give all that credit to Mr. Lonick. He is really the Superman that swooped in to save this one, so.
Anything else, any details to fill us in on? I thought it was pretty self-explanatory reading through it, so.
It is, it's just, we've got to get the approval for you to come sign closing documents, and then we will coordinate with all of the parties to meet at a specified time and place. I do know that the title company representative is not able to meet at the day that we set up for the closing, but they can take documents that have been notarized. So.
Perfect.
Everybody else, Mr. Lonick is over an hour and a half away, and so we felt that Hastings is probably the best place to meet. We can make sure that Tyden is available and have somebody from the clerk's office come as a notary and take care of business.
Okay. Any questions for Heather? Okay. There are no questions. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the closing documents and disbursements of funds for the conservation easement and purchase agreement between Berry County and Barbara Ann Wickham and James J. Wickham for the property located in Carlton Township, and authorize the chair to sign it.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support that. Campbell?
Motion by Carlton, support by Campbell, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the closing documents and distribution of funds for the conservation easement and purchase agreement between Berry County and Barbara Ann Wickham and James J. Wickham for the property located in Carlton Township, and authorize the chair to sign it. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Heather. Under Sheriff Sixberry. Good morning.
Good morning.
Another beautiful vehicle I see, huh?
Sounds like you really abused this one. Well, this one was used and used and used, and then we put it as a deer truck, also pickup truck. So obviously, if anybody's been out to any dump areas before, you know how not so good it is. And anyway, so that was the issue with what happened here. Obviously, we used it in different areas throughout our office, and then it went to be the main deer pickup truck, and then now it's just no longer what we need it to be, so.
Its useful life has expired?
Yes, What we're recommending is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approve the scrap vehicle of 2005 Ford F-150 XL with the VIN listed. We're seeking approval to the Sheriff's Office fleet for the 2005 Ford F-150 XL with 485,000 miles on it, 111,485 miles. Has been deemed unsafe to travel on the road due to the fact it's broken frame. According to one of the repair business, Dewey's Auto Body Inc., written estimate was not given, only stated deemed unsafe to drive and would not repair it. The other repair business, M43 Auto Body and Mechanical, provided a written estimate of dollar amount of $10,077.15, stated the repair would exceed the vehicle value. The vehicle was unsafe for the road, broken frame. The rust also extended to the surrounding structure support to the left rocker and door opening frame. There is no good option to repair it correctly up to the collision standards. Wilder's tire and auto written statement frame is rusted and not safe on the road. They are attachments of the two written statements.
It's just something duct tape won't fix this time, huh?
Not this time.
Okay. Questions from commissioners? Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to scrap a 2005 Ford F-150 XL, VIN number 1FTRF14W75NB55083.
So moved.
Motion by Smelker, support by Hatfield, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to scrap a 2005 Ford F-150 XL, VIN number 1FTRF14W75NB55083. Is there discussion?
Thanks for getting the quote for the repair and the comments from the other person. That's very helpful.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Good day.
What's that? Michael.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have two items. You want to start with?
We actually just have one item.
One item, okay.
Yep. The reappointment of our county treasurer to the Berry County Building Authority. So this would be a request to recommend to the board approval to reappoint Sue Vandekar, our county treasurer, to the Building Authority for a 3-year term, which would be 1/1 of '23 through 12/31 of '25. The Building Authority derives its authority from Public Act 31 of 1948. They exist to finance the construction of local building and projects through the issuance of bonds, limited tax general obligation bonds. And it consists of 3 individuals. Public Act 31 does not prescribe any specifics, if you may, for the appointment of those individuals, just that it shall be 3 individuals. The board historically has appointed someone that represents the legal community, an attorney, and that has been, in fact, for my career, Dave Tripp. They have also appointed someone representing the construction industry, and that has been Bob Vanderbo, and then someone from the finance side, and that has been Sue Vandekar. It makes some sense, and we did not advertise for this position. Makes some sense to have the county treasurer as she handles the bonds and whatnot relating to projects. We have not needed the building authority. I don't know that they met last year. They have their purpose has become a little less necessary over the years, in that the legislature, and I don't remember the date, but it's been 20 years, 15, 20 years ago, that they amended the law to allow boards of commissioners to do the same thing that a building authority does, to directly construct buildings and finance them through the issuance of bonds. Prior to that, you were required to have the building authority to do that. So that being said, we still have a need for the building authority, and one of the issues right now is that as we deal with general capital in the city relating to the project on our Friend of the Court or adjacent to the Friend of the Court building, that building, when we purchased it and renovated it, we issued about $950,000 worth of bonds. You may recall that those were just recently paid off. But the ownership of that building still resides with the building authority itself. So it's not an issue until we need to do something. And of course, we need to transfer some of the property to general capital. So that will require action by the building authority. So a long way of kind of going around the barn, but my request is to ask you to reappoint Sue Vandekar to that so that I can constitute that board to prepare and approve some paperwork related to that project.
Good information and good education. Question from commissioners? Okay, hearing none. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint Berry County Treasurer Sue Vandekar to the Berry County Building Authority for a 3-year term beginning 1/1/2023 that ends 12/31/2025.
So moved. Hatfield.
Support.
Motion by Hatfield, supported by Getty, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint Berry County Treasurer Sue Vandekar to the Berry County Building Authority for a 3-year term that began 1/1/23 and ends on 12/31/2025. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, final on our business, let's go through our interviews for this morning. For tax allocation, we had one interview with Vivian Connor. Andy was not able to attend. Andy Cove was not able to attend. Discussion from commissioners?
I guess without an interview, I'm not real confident in voting on someone that didn't interview. Are we going to vote today, or are we going to extend him an invitation to interview next week?
I think he was on vacation, and my thought with this was that the tax allocation board is literally 3 meetings a year. So, and those meetings tend to be, Pam, 5 to 7 minutes, 10 minutes, that the information is provided. They're very quick. It is not something that is time-consuming. The information provided is pretty well. You're reviewing and going through information, so, and I think that's something that Vivian, being very familiar with the county board, also can handle that. And although I really like Andy as an individual and a lot of things he's doing in the county as well, there may be a better spot for him on a different board as well, so.
Okay.
So I'm comfortable with either making a motion to appoint Vivian, or we can do what, if Madam Clerk would call the roll, then you can make your choice. Further discussion?
I would agree, just that we have 2 really high caliber candidates here. And, if we do approve Vivian today, I would certainly encourage Andy Cove to, seek service in another way.
I agree. Very high caliber individuals. Absolutely.
If we're looking at possibly putting him on a board, I think it'd be a good idea to have him in for the interview. And maybe before we make the appointment on this board. There aren't any other, we're at the end of the board appointments for the year, aren't we?
There always seems to be things that pop up throughout the year.
Oh,
People
do they?
resign and are, so
Say never.
to say we're at the end, I would not agree with that, but we're probably nearing the end of the heavy lifting anyways, but, you know.
Luella just provided some input that Cove isn't available for the next committee of the whole, and this board will begin meeting in April. Time perspective.
Okay. Becomes more urgent then.
Yeah.
Okay. No further discussion. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Colton. Yes. Aye.
You vote for an individual. Vote for an individual.
Per person.
Okay, yeah. So we have two spaces and two people, right?
One space
One space in
for
this.
tax allocation. So, and at this point, Connor.
Vivian Connor.
Connor, correct.
Campbell.
Connor.
Doster.
Connor.
Getty.
Connor.
Hatfield.
Connor.
Jackson, I'm sorry, Smoker.
Vivian.
Tunison.
Connor.
And Jackson.
Connor. Thank you.
I would, yeah, certainly echo
Yeah.
the sentiment that Andy is a very talented individual and has shown his commitment to the community in a number of ways, just hasn't had an opportunity to work with us. So I think we do need to make sure we have a visit with him and consider him for some other opening when it's available.
He would be excellent, I agree. I would agree. Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Vivian Connor to serve in a position of citizen at large in the Berry County Tax Allocation Board for a one-year term that begins 4/1/23 and expires on 3/31/24.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Smelker, support by Getty, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Vivian Connor to serve in a position of citizen at large in the Berry County Tax Allocation Board for a one-year term that begins on 4/1/23 and expires on 3/31/24. Additional discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Appointments to serve on Planning Commission. We had one interview with former Commissioner Geiger. At this point, I think we'll have another interview with Joseph, I just lost his name, Camerzin, when he is available, when that can be
Yeah.
scheduled.
Jeff Camerzin.
I think it is actually Joseph that it was transcribed incorrectly off of the resume.
It is Joseph. Oh.
Yeah, so it is Joseph Kezerman. So we will interview him at a future committee of the whole meeting. But at this moment, is there a recommendation or discussion on Commissioner Geiger, or on former Commissioner Geiger, on Ben?
I support him.
He's got the experience, he's been on planning and zoning before, I think he'd do an excellent job, so it's good to have someone that's already can hit the ground running, that knows what they're doing, that doesn't need a lot of uptime, so.
I guess I took a nap. If we're gonna vote on this, why would we interview Joseph?
We will interview Joseph,
Why, if we're voting on it now?
because we have two positions to fill, and we're only filling one of them
Didn't say
today.
that, okay.
Yes. Is that correct, Michael? We have two positions to fill on planning and zoning?
That's correct. Yes, yes, on the planning commission.
Okay,
You're proposing we appoint one now.
today.
Yep.
It's point one today.
Okay, I'm with you now.
Okay.
Good question. Since we're delaying that interview, can we open that up, or have to stick by the original deadline for applications?
Michael?
When you say open it up, to re-advertise?
Yeah, well, we're talking about Cove as a good example.
So, yeah, you absolutely, it's your decision and it's your process. So if you want to extend the deadline or the application process, you can do that. We would just have to open that up and we'd re-advertise in the paper.
How long was it open before? I mean, it runs in the paper several times.
It does, yeah. I can't answer that specifically. I know Pam plans these, and it was probably a good couple of weeks.
Yeah, we
or
typically
more.
run them.
Couple times in the newspaper.
Okay.
Personally, I don't know that it'd be necessary to have the same publication that you did the first time, because it's already been done. But I agree that until we've filled the position, someone should be able to apply for it. Do you know what I mean? You don't think so?
No, the deadline is passed for the application. You either have to reopen it up or go with what we got, I feel.
Mr. Chair? Yeah, I think that would set a bad precedent, but what could Joe possibly do or say in an interview that would make us not vote for him?
I don't know. We have seen some things in my 8 years.
Well, if he's going to be the only candidate and nobody else can apply,
Well, we could choose not to
No.
appoint, we could choose to leave that position vacant, let's say if something unanticipated came about during the interview.
He's got a very good resume. I can't imagine something going sideways, but it has happened in the past. So if we interview him and we didn't feel he was right for that position, we could open up and further recruit, so further advertise.
We don't have to vote for
So-
it now.
I don't think we want to leave that open, just knowing what's ahead for the planning commission. I think we need all the capable bodies that we can get. Yeah, I'm not, I raised the question, but I'm not sure that it really is worth the time and expense to reopen the advertising for the position, since we seem to have a qualified applicant. We just need to confirm that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Well, let's move forward with rescheduling that interview. Do we have a board consensus that we can vote on Ben Geiger today?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That wasn't what I understood. Somehow I'm not figuring it out. I thought you're basically saying that that why not just
Appoint him?
appoint him?
Because he needs to go through the interview is what the
Okay.
chairman's saying.
Yeah, I've never met him before, and I'd like to meet people.
Oh, I thought that you had spoken kindly of him. Oh, I thought,
His resume.
I see.
I've read the resume. I haven't met him personally, so.
Okay.
So.
All right, I got it.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend, following the interviews, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Ben Geiger to serve on the Berry County Planning Commission for a 3-year term that begins on 5/1/23 and expires on 4/30/26.
So moved.
Was that Colton?
Yes.
Motion by Colton, support by Smelker, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Ben Geiger to serve on the Berry County Planning Commission for a 3-year term that begins on 5/1/23 and expires on 4/30/26. Additional discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I could just, so if you're only going to appoint one, there are, again, 2 people, Clyde Morgan and Robert Vanderbilt, whose term, one of those could continue to serve on the commission and will. If you could identify, and I think the recommendation is that this would replace Robert Vanderbilt, and then Clyde is willing to continue to serve until Joseph, or if you don't point to it, someone else is appointed to that position, but you then have identified for the planning and zoning who will actually continue to serve on that board. That makes sense, sorry.
Okay, Commissioner Colton and Smelker, are you okay with?
Yes.
Replacing Bob Vanderbilt.
Replacing Bob Vanderbilt, okay. So, just to clarify, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Ben Geiger, replacing Bob Vanderbilt, to serve on the Berry County Planning Commission for a 3-year term that begins on 5/1/23 and expires on 4/30/26. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. We will look forward to meeting Joseph at some point in the near future. Finally, Zoning Board of Appeals appointments. We had 3 interviews, 3 very good candidates. And just some thoughts on this. We were led, Jim McManus said that there were 3 positions available. In our communication and with Michael, we were under the impression that there were 2 positions available. Just for clarification, I would like to appoint 2 today, and then let's discuss the 3rd appointment going forward. I also have some questions just on the relationship, and I want to be sure that between son-in-law, father-in-law, that there's not a conflict there that we can avoid, that we don't put ourselves in some legal positions. Comment?
Been there,
Okay,
on the same board, father-in-law, daughter-in-law.
so it has happened in the past, okay. What board was that?
Preservation.
Conservation Easement Board, okay. Thank you for the insight.
And just to clarify, I did not raise that issue because I necessarily had a concern about it. I just thought that it was something that we should be aware of.
Okay. I'd like some further consideration of that before we move forward, though. Is that okay with the board?
Yes.
Okay. So we have 2 positions to fill, and that would be Shirley Barnum, Philip Joseph, and I lost the resume of
Daniel
Willett.
Daniel Willett. So when Madam Clerk calls your name, please tell her which 2 candidates you would support for this position. Further discussion? Questions? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Just point of clarification, but you're saying that you would not be comfortable if those 2 were Joseph and Willett?
There's 2 positions available
Right.
to appoint. If the board wants to appoint those 2 positions, that's fine. But I feel we need further discussion on Willett moving forward. Not that he's not qualified for the position, I just want some clarification and some further discussion, so.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to clarify that because, and I understand the concerns, but you want us to indicate that you would be uncomfortable if we indicated Joseph M. Willett at this point. So you're kind of removing one of them from consideration until we have an opportunity to clarify those issues.
Yeah, let's vote for those 2 and then, or vote for your 2, and we'll see how that goes. I'm pretty confident with how that's going to go based on the interviews. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably not, but.
No, I am.
Colton,
Shirley Barnum and Philip Joseph.
Campbell,
Barnum and Joseph.
Doster,
Barnum and Joseph.
Getty,
Barnum and Joseph.
Hatfield,
Barnum and Joseph.
Jackson, I'm sorry, I think you need to go last. Smelker,
Barnum and Joseph.
Tunison,
Barnum Joseph.
and now Jackson.
Barnum and Joseph. Okay. The Chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to appoint Shirley Barnum and Philip Joseph to serve on the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 3-year term that begins on 4/1/23 and expires on 3/31/26.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Hatfield, support by Getty, to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to reappoint Shirley Barnum and Philip Joseph to serve on the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 3-year term that begins on 4/1/23 and expires on 3/31/26. Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, Commissioners. Once again, very good candidates all the way around. Limited public comment. At this time, the chair, anyone from the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Pat Jameson, South Bowens Mills. We're Blue zones again. You had mentioned that the county really doesn't have anything to do with it. On my way in today, the county transit bus I seen was wrapped in blue zones advertisement. It takes 4 hours at $215 for a FOIA request. That means there's a lot of communications going on in the government about blue zones. Commissioner Getty has been championing it since 2019. So during COVID, all that she did was push blue zones. There's a lot of problems in the county, in her own district, and for one, the Yankee Springs Trailer Park, the arsenic deal. Something needs to be done about that. No one seems to be concerned. You're too busy trying to build your imaginary blue zones community. Don't really like that. So, and another thing with the, I don't know if it's a big deal, neighbors, was with the deal with Philip Joseph and the Willett guy. They're related, but I know there's at least one board where there's direct neighbors that are on the board, the Solid Waste Oversight Committee. You know, there seems to be a lot of a revolving door in Berry County. You get off one committee, you go to the next. You know, you got two old commissioners that are up here today trying to get on committees. You don't want any new people. You know, you were pretty against this Willett guy just because he was a son-in-law. Let's get some new ideas in here and get rid of some of the old ideas.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Good morning, Mark Monsignor, Berry Township. I would just like to make a few comments about what's been coming up more and more, which is the gravel pit issue. I would mention first off, I live within a couple hundred yards of a gravel pit, which is getting closer every day. So I do have some thoughts on this, but I would, up until recently, have been of the opinion that we should keep it under local control. On the other hand, I've also had a very detailed tutorial from Brad Lamberg, who has a certain amount of interest in gravel pits, to argue for actually the opposite position, that we would be better off with state control of where these gravel pits go. Because under the present system, there will never be a gravel pit in Ada Township, because the DeVosses and the Van Andels have deep pockets and they can keep all gravel pits out of their jurisdiction. On the other hand, we have just had a situation over on, I've just lost the name of the road, where an Irish multinational corporation is buying up parts of Berry County. It's a kind of an unfair fight to have a local township board going up against a multi-billion-dollar corporation. So if we keep the present situation of local control, we might not exactly get what we think we're going to get from this as far as who gets in whose backyard these gravel pits go. So I'd just like to put that thought out there, that there is another side to the question of local control. And I personally thought it was a fairly strong argument that he made. And I'd just like to put that into the mix of the conversation. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. Is there further public comment? Hearing none, commissioner comments. Commissioner Doster?
I serve on this SWIMBA board, and they generate a lot of information about substance abuse from a 8-county region, and I thought this was interesting. This was something in our packet. I handed it out to everyone. They have like a 5-year study of the primary reason for admission regarding drugs in Berry County is on one side on page 7, and alcohol use is down significantly. Heroin use is down some. Meth and speed is significantly up, which was something that we thought was a trend that was going down for a long period of time, especially with some of the legislation to put Sudafed behind the counter and all that. So that's quite curious. Of course, marijuana is going up, probably due to the relaxation of the criminal code on that. Opiates is gone significantly down, and that's where we find fentanyl, is under the opiates. So, you know, all this talk that we hear of fentanyl apparently is not as significant a problem in Berry County as one might have been led to believe, and that meth is. And then on the other side is an average of the 8 counties, so you can kind of compare to see how we place with them. They're all in the southwest corner. We're the furthest northern county in this group. Everything else is toward the south. But I thought that was interesting.
Thank you. Good information. Commissioner Colton.
I just want to add to Mark's comments in that, I worked on medical marijuana legislation when I was in the legislature, and all kinds of studies where there is marijuana availability, there's less opiate use. And a lot of people use marijuana to help get off opioids. So that could, be somewhat of a reflection of the numbers we're seeing there.
Thank you. Commissioner Getty.
Nothing.
Commissioner Smelker.
Nothing.
Commissioner Tunison.
While we're all here, I'd like to bring up, if we could have some discussion on maybe getting rid of that compensation board or committee that's there. That's all. I just wanted to bring that up. I just don't know if it was done in a fair manner last time, and this is an off year. We can disband it, and we can either form a committee in '24, or we can do something different. I'm just bringing it up for discussion.
Thank you.
That's all.
Commissioner Campbell.
I don't have anything, thank you.
Commissioner Hatfield.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. I have nothing either. Just to comment that I do not have anything against Mr. Willett for his interview. I think he was qualified. My concern was, A, we were told there were 2 positions available, so I wanted to confirm that, and B, that is a small board. There are 5 people on that board, so it's not a 7, 8, 11-person board, so 2 people is a little closer to a consensus, 2/5 of a board. So I just want to be sure, talking with Michael and the board, where we're at with that going forward and get some other input for it. So, but nothing against him at all. He interviewed just fine, and he's got qualifications. So with that, we have come to the end of our